Hello and welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Town of Oakville. Before I invite everyone to join us for O Canada, I want to thank Councillor Nanda and Councillor Longo for bringing the Blue Jays spirit to the meeting tonight. And Council, I'll just tell you that it's an hour and a half till game time. Please rise and join us in O Canada if you're able.
Is there a reason you're telling us this?
No pressure.
Shut up.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, a true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Lord, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. The town of Oakville is located on treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We thank the Mississaugas for being stewards of this traditional territory. And Council always looks forward to any input from you, our public. We hope that you keep well, stay safe, and let us on Council know of any chance to be helpful to you and yours. And please let us know anytime you have a suggestion to increase Oakville's harmony, prosperity, and livability. Council, we need to confirm the minutes of several previous meetings, the 5 as listed in the agenda. Councillor Longo and Councillor Elger, thank you for your motion and your second. Any objection from Council? Mr. Clerk, there being none, the minutes are adopted. I ask for the same thing for the Budget Committee minutes from September 24th. Councillor McNeice and Councillor Lischina, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that's adopted. Council, you have before you three consent items. Is there a mover? And Councillor Adams, is there a seconder? Councillor Grant. Any objection? There being none, that's carried. Council, that brings us to our first discussion item, and that is the quarterly presentation by Oakville Enterprises Corporation. And the chair recognizes Rob Lister, the president and CEO of Oakville Enterprises Corporation. Welcome, Mr. Lister.
If we find all right, where's my full screen button? Well, we're gonna go with that. Mayor Burton, councils, very nice to be here this evening, give another update on Oakville Hydro and OEC. Today with me from OEC are several people. We have Jeff Mocha, who will speak to present the presentation this evening. We have Scott Moody, Sean McCoggan, Laura Wilson, Mary Caputi, Bethany St. Pierre, Suzanne Hillier, Annie Petrin, and Andrew Elnazir. On this slide, it's a picture of one of our detailed damage prevention technicians who's doing a locate along a sidewalk. And today, we're going to talk about 3 topics: the energy sector developments, OEC and Oakville Hydro updates, and recognition and community engagement. And at this point, I'm going to ask Jeff Mocha, who is our Chief Operations and Electrification Officer and also responsible for Oakville Hydro, to come forward and make the presentation. So thank you, and Jeff.
right. Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Mayor Burton and Council. I'm Jeff Mocha. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and share some developments that have taken place since our last presentation. Recently, the Government of Ontario has made some changes to the Ontario Energy Board, having appointed Jeff Owen as the new chair of the Board of Directors. They've also announced the appointment of Carolyn Caldwell as the new Chief Executive Officer. Ontario's electricity sector today is seeing growing demand, an evolving supply mix, and a drive towards electrification. Combined, these factors are spurring the IESO's ongoing large-scale resource acquisition effort to ensure sufficient supply will be available into the 2030s and beyond. In support of this mandate, the IESO released the Northern Ontario Bulk Plan Report. The plan is recommending the construction of a new 270-kilometer transmission line between Sudbury and Barrie to be in service by 2032. In addition, the IESO is running multiple RFP submission windows, each under a distinct request for proposals, with the goal of procuring the resources to meet system needs. On October 2nd, the Honorable Seamus O'Regan, joined by Greg Abel, President and CEO of Enbridge, to deliver a keynote address at the Empire Club of Canada, titled Build Canada Now, Compete or Retreat. Key takeaways included clear rules and guidelines from the government needed to support market growth, encouragement for Canada to make the most of its resources, and the perspective that when Canada builds, Canada prospers. Mayor Burton also participated to close out the event and thank Mr. Abel for his remarks. With more than 3,000 employees nationwide, OEC continues to grow nationally. This map illustrates where we serve customers today. Coast to coast, we continue to deliver critical energy and infrastructure services, which cover the full project lifecycle from engineering and design to construction and comprehensive field operations. Our teams support the entire energy value chain, delivering solutions for everything from new housing developments to large-scale infrastructure projects that connect communities to the essential energy that they depend on. This summer, electricity demand in Ontario reached levels not seen in over a decade. A June heat wave pushed temperatures to a 9-year high of 36 degrees C with a humidex of 46 degrees C, the highest ever recorded for the month of June. The system peaked on June 23rd to 2025 at 436 megawatts, which is just 3 megawatts shy of our all-time system peak, which took place in August of 2016. Thanks to investments in asset renewal, system hardening, and advanced automation, the town of Oakville's electricity grid remains stable and reliable. Electric vehicle adoption in Oakville remains consistent as participation in the electric vehicle market continues to grow year over year. Oakville Hydro's forecast reflects this adoption rate, which is twice that of Ontario's adoption rate. And by year end, nearly 10% of households in the town of Oakville will have adopted an electric vehicle. That said, the electric vehicle industry has undergone significant changes this year and is expected to continue navigating challenging and evolving landscape in the years ahead. The federal government has paused its interim EV sales target of 20% by 2026 and launched a 60-day review to ensure alignment with market conditions, industry readiness, and global trade dynamics. We will continue to monitor the market conditions and their potential impact on the grid. There are 3 rate plans in place under the regulated price plan in Ontario: time of use, tiered, and ultra-low overnight. Beginning on November 1st, the regulated price plan is changing, causing the cost of energy to increase. But the Ontario Energy Rebate is also increasing to help compensate. As an outcome of these changes, a typical residential customer will see an increase of approximately $6.50 on their monthly bill. The rate increases are mainly due to higher payments to generators, in addition to the IESO recovering from under-collecting over the last 12 months. Local distribution companies, like Oakville Hydro, have been asked to support the IESO's province-wide electricity demand-side management programs, targeting commercial and industrial customers. Now, for context, this is a $10.9 billion 12-year funding commitment from the Ontario government, delivering conservation opportunities for electricity customers and consumers across the province. Program examples include rebates for heat pumps, Energy Star appliances, smart thermostats, and Save on Energy offerings. Our work on the Vancouver Island Advanced Metering Project continues to progress well. Our partnership with the Cowichan tribe is showing early success, with 10% of the overall 100,000 meter update complete. And we've received excellent feedback from the project owner thus far. In Alberta, we continue to secure work for the province's large electricity utilities. Most recently, we were reselected to support a developer choice program, which gives developers greater control over the installation of electric utility infrastructure. Under this program, we will provide comprehensive services to support land development projects across Calgary, including turnkey electrical design, permitting and coordination, materials management, civil and electrical construction. On September 30th, Oakville Hydro was awarded the 2025 Ontario Energy Association Customer Service Award, recognizing the organization's leadership in delivering innovative, customer-focused solutions and its unwavering commitment to excellence. Presented at the 2025 Ontario Energy Conference in Toronto, the award honors outstanding performance across the energy sector, with Oakville Hydro distinguished for its leading efforts to enhance customer experience. We remain actively engaged in our communities, partnering with Indigenous peoples and supporting local initiatives. The team members participated in the Grand River Employment and Training Six Nations Job Fair. Established in 1992, this is an Indigenous nonprofit organization providing employment and training opportunities to Six Nations band members across Ontario. In Oakville, we recently took part in the Terry Fox Run. We participated in the United Plane Pull event, where we took on the challenge of pulling a 200,000-pound UPS cargo plane in support of United Way, Halton, and Hamilton. And we also joined the Oak Park Fall Fair. September is a time of meaningful focus on Indigenous initiatives, and I'd like to conclude our update today with this slide. On September 30th, team members across the country wore orange shirts in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. As an organization, we continue to be actively involved with the Canadian Council for Indigenous Business through the Progressive Aboriginal Relations Program, committing in 2025 to advance leadership, employment, business development, and community relationships. This concludes our update. I thank you for your time this evening, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mocha. You have a question from Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation, Jeff. You mentioned IESO is doing the build from Sudbury to Barrie. Mm-hmm. Is that an opportunity for OEC companies to be involved in any of that work?
There's certainly some potential there. That will likely be a Hydro One transmission line, and some of our businesses do support Hydro One on the design review side. We don't have the electrical construction for transmission. That's a whole separate division, but there is an opportunity to be involved. Yep.
Councillor Haslett-Deal.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. You mentioned that IESO wanted some support around, and you mentioned heat pumps. Can you be a little more specific for us? What would be the involvement in that area?
So for Oakville Hydro's role in that is communicating the provincial program. So the IESO has established the partners, the offerings. We're in the middle of getting set up so that we can help them get that message out. So we don't have all of the details today, but we're supporting the program.
So that would be in the bill envelope or on the website?
As well as just targeted outreach. So not necessarily, I mean, we certainly could do it with the bill, but there's also a communications component here where we can reach out in other ways.
To the and with a commercial emphasis?
Correct, commercial
Okay.
industrial emphasis.
Thanks for clarifying.
And Councillor Adams.
Thanks very much for the presentation. You had a really interesting slide about the electricity use during the heat wave and comparing it to a previous top point that was nearly 10 years ago. And we've had a ton of growth in the town over the last 10 years. Is there a way of recognizing how much of the the impact or the change in impact was due to population or growth in the town versus the efficiency changes that might have happened over the last 10 years in the way we're using electricity?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. We've also part of that is conservation, which has been progressing since 2016. As part of our annual forecast, we take all of that into account. We model further conservation, we model the growth. So we separate that out in our forecast. In order to hit that peak, that really happens with that first heat wave with high humidity when all the air conditioners come on at once. So for that specifically, the growth would be a big factor.
So is there a way of understanding how much more efficient we are or how much conservation we get out of the improved appliances, improved lighting, and all these things that we have now that we didn't have 10 years ago? Is there some kind of number that the public could understand? Yeah, we've improved things by 20% in terms of our usage? Or whatever the number is, I made up 20%. But.
Yeah. I think what we could say is that it's more or less balanced the growth. So the growth we've seen since 2016 has more or less been offset by conservation. And we anticipate further growth going forward, which is part of our model. So you could use 10%. I mean, if it's 2% a year or so, would be an order of magnitude.
Is that actually about what it is, about a 2% efficiency improvement annually?
It's around. I can come back with a better
That would be interesting
number,
to
but
hear.
back of the envelope.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, any issues or concerns as a result of the noise from south of the border in terms of tariffs having an effect on sourcing or?
Yes, good question. So far, we have been continuing to use existing contracts, which are all part of the established trade agreements. So those have not been impacted by tariffs. Doesn't mean it couldn't change all of a sudden, but we continue to monitor that situation. Supply chain is something we keep a close eye on right now.
So we have a number of U.S. suppliers at
There's a
some
variety.
point of the supply
We
line?
have, well, for example, Siemens is a good one, Canadian head office right here, and they have manufacturing globally. So I think someone like Siemens would be a little constricted now around where they can move material where. They also have a team on their side trying to ensure that we get the right product under the right program. So we work with our partners to mitigate that.
And like the rest of us, you just read the papers in the morning to see what may happen that day.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Through Mayor Burton. Thanks for the presentation. I was reading, I think as recently as last week, in fact, the electric vehicle sales have gone from 17% to 7%. How will that impact your model if things don't improve?
Well, I think, on the Oakville Hydro model side, that takes some pressure off. We were prepared to meet that high target. It's backed off a little bit. We continue to monitor the actual registrations and we chart that out year over year. So that's something that we factor in annually to our model to make sure that we're on
that's a
pace.
huge drop. When I saw that, and
is.
apparently in Europe that's not happening at all. So I don't know what we're doing wrong here, but I think it might be something to do with not getting any money for buying one. So anyway, thank you.
And Councillor, the drop-off might not be happening here to the same degree. Councillor O'Meara.
Thanks very much, Jeff, for the presentation and for everyone for coming. Last week on the 23rd, the Minister of Energy wrote an op-ed in the National Post, which was, I think, scaring a lot of people, saying that the LDCs aren't capable to keep up with the infrastructure. They don't have the capacity. They're going to allow for new models, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's this impending sort of doom falling on distribution centers. I'd be interested in our comments in terms of that and maybe where we are. It looks like what he was speaking about we've already done with private partnerships and we're evolving. But I guess, A, are you aware of anything that they're potentially looking at doing? And B, where would we fit in the cadre of reinvesting in the infrastructure and not pushing those onto the energy bills, which I think is what he was kind of saying that some municipalities are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. And to your point, we've done some of that already with private investment, but In the Oakville Hydro program, we continue to forecast a sustainable capital investment rate. I would say we've done an excellent job of investing over the years. We don't have that cliff coming up that we're going to fall off. We're in good shape. As far as what I predict the government's going to do, it's hard to say, but we're keeping an eye on the news and what the next step is.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't too worried. I know we've got great leadership here, but I'm worried that we might get caught up in legislation to deal with other areas of the province that don't have the leadership that we do, and we can sometimes get caught up in that wave with legislative changes that might not help us. So anyway, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. I can assure you that when the 29 mayors of the 29 largest cities in Ontario meet, 28 of them are jealous of our hydro. Mr. Mocha, thank you very much for your presentation. I won't detain you long. Sorry, Councillor Knoll, and then I'll come back.
Thank you. On the EV question again, or the EV statistic again, I don't think it comes as any great surprise, the absorption rate of EVs in Oakville. You see them everywhere. I'm curious, though, about this double the rate of Ontario, even though we're seeing potentially some retraction from that going forward. How are we keeping up in terms of infrastructure around that? Was that anticipated, first of all, that doubling of the actual I guess, ownership in Oakville? And secondly, how are we managing that from an infrastructure perspective?
Yeah, thank you. You know, we've certainly been modeling that in our forecasts. So we've been planning for worst case, which is a high adoption rate. The current rate of adoption is manageable for us. In some cases, there's a localized upgrade of a distribution transformer on a pole, but we are not seeing system-level issues with the proliferation we've seen.
Is there a point at which there is a challenge or a bigger challenge? Like, is there a absorption rate or an acceptance rate or ownership rate that becomes problematic for Oakville?
I think we've at some point you look at management opportunities. So if everybody's turning on their EV at the exact same time, that can be an issue. But there's other options out there that we can look at in the future to help manage that. I think technology continues to progress on the EV vendor side as well as on the infrastructure side. So at this point, we don't have a big concern that we're gonna miss this. We're staying on top of it.
And how are you achieving those calculations, or how do you derive those calculations of the percentages in Oakville? Is it voluntary recognition or registration, or is it something from the Ministry of Transportation? How are you securing this information?
These are the ministry's numbers. So we're just looking at registered vehicles in the Oakville area.
And do you have a sense of how many homes actually have home chargers versus people that might be charging at external facilities?
No, we don't have line of sight into in-home behind the meter charging infrastructure, but we're looking at registered vehicles and just the number in Oakville compared to registered EVs.
Because I guess the real question isn't how many vehicles there are, it's how many people are actually charging in their homes is the real challenge.
I mean, all of that load does materialize on the grid, so at an aggregated level, we'll see it. But we wouldn't know they have one in their home unless they've called us to tell us about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mocha, on that peak day, did Oakville have enough power? Did our grid perform?
It performed very, very well.
Did we have any headroom?
We do still have headroom, yes. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Knoll, I think that should help reassure you. When you talked about the increase in the bills, you prompted two concerns for me. First, I'm not sure the public would have understood that increase is not due to Oakville Hydro Corporation. And secondly, and I'm just asking you to confirm that.
That is true, Mayor Burton, yes. It is
Thank
not
you.
Oakville
I hope
Hydro's.
everybody heard that who got
Yes.
alarmed by the first.
Yeah.
And then second, you mentioned an interesting thing that I thought we maybe should drill into, and that is, you mentioned the IESO under collecting for a year. Could you explain what that is and how that happens?
The IESO, Mayor Burton, they forecast and they try and predict how much consumption there's going to be. They go to market and they sign contracts with generators. And so what that means is for the last 12 months, they underestimated the cost of generation. And so now they have to collect that shortfall.
So that's that's an addendum to the bill, I guess, a catch-up.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Councillor Elgar, you got another question?
Well, sorry, through you, Mayor Burton, my question, 'cause I didn't realize you had such good stats. How do we compare, like on vehicle sales of EVs, since you get it directly? And that sounds like almost 98% accuracy at least, if it's exactly the vehicles registered to a municipality. How much are we down this year percentage-wise over other years?
It's been a steady increase. So what we've seen year over year is almost a straight line adoption. So we're not seeing that hockey stick accelerated rate. It's a consistent increase each year in Oakville.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go, Councillor. You get to go home with good news. Mr. Mocha, thank you for all the information and the good news. And thank you to Oakville Enterprises. You make us proud. And one of my greatest pleasures is listening to 28 mayors be jealous of you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Council. The next item, Matt Day has he's here if you have questions. I believe the one investment program recommendation is an easy decision, and I'm hoping that you agree. But let me first ask if I have any questions before I ask for a motion. Councillor Haslett-Thiel.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton. I do have a few. So Matt, thank you for telling me to ask them tonight. My first one is, in the report, it talks about the fee for service under equity as stated at 0.5. But in the actual agreement, the Appendix E, it says 0.6. Can you just explain why the difference?
Through you, Mayor Burton. Thanks for the question, Councillor Haslett-Thiel. For that one, actually, I'm going to pass it along to Jason from One Investment, who's we're fortunate to have here to address those technical details.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Councillor. The agreement says no greater than 0.6, and that's by design. The agreement is a standard agreement that every municipality uses regardless of the time they enter into One Investment. That point being said, we do not envision having a 0.6 fee. In fact, as a not-for-profit, One Investment was collecting too much revenue, so we lowered the fee to be commensurate with the balances in the portfolios and the work we needed to do to run the program. So it is more likely, in fact, that you'd actually see a fee decrease down the road rather than an increase. But when Matt brought this to our attention, it's a fair time to restate that appendix and change it to 0.5. So we will do that before the town would sign it. That's no problem.
So thank you very much for that explanation. And somebody said it was a good news story, and it was. So then in terms of the notice period, it's 30 days if you're going to change the fees. I just found that, yeah, I've never liked 30-day periods. Is that standard? It's not negotiable? And based on what you've now just told us, if anything, it would be going down, not up?
It is non-negotiable. It's the standard agreement that every investor has, so it's the rules of the game we have to play by. So if we are changing, if you were an investor at the time the fees went down, we would have advised the investors. So that's what it's for. We say, come the first of next month, this change will take effect.
Okay, thank you for that. This one may be more for Matt. What is the projected annual impact? And how is it shown on our accounting books?
Through you, Mayor Burton. So the annual impact in terms of the fees, it's not actually billed to the town, it's just applied to the returns. So for example, if the returns were 8% in a given year, it would actually be 7.5%. So they're not actually billed and they're applied to the balances.
Okay, thank you for explaining that for the public. And my last question is, do you know if the region uses One Investments?
Through you, Mayor Burton, they do have an agreement with One. They're not currently using One Investments. In terms of our neighbors, Milton has had an agreement for a number of years and started investing with the equity fund earlier this year. Some other larger municipalities in our area include the City of Hamilton, Peel Region, and York Region. They're some of the larger investors.
And do you have any understanding of why the region's not using it?
I currently don't. I will say as a upper tier, they do have access to some investment products that we don't as a lower tier, just because they have a credit rating. So I'm sure they have a bit of a different strategy around things, but that's not something I could answer.
Okay, thank you for your indulgence of my questions. I'd be happy to move it, Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Councillor. I need a seconder. And I'll take Councillor Longo. Thank you. Council, any objections? Mr. Clerk, there being none, that is adopted. And now, Council, we have the annual audit planning report. And for this, we've got a presentation. We're going to start with Jade Surgener, our Manager of Accounting. And if you give her your attention, all will be unfolded for you.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. As part of our commitment to transparency and sound financial governance, I'm pleased to welcome our external auditors from KPMG, who will be presenting their 2025 fiscal year audit plan. This presentation will outline their approach to the upcoming audit, including key focus areas, timelines, and their methodology. It's an important opportunity for the public and for you as council to understand how the audit will be conducted and to be able to ask any questions that you may have on the process. Please join me in welcoming Carlos Alvarez, the audit partner, and Matt Cirdelli, the audit senior manager, who will walk us through their plan.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. Happy to be here to present the audit plan again for fiscal 2025. I am again consistent with at least the last few years, joined by Matt Cirdelli, a consistent face. And where we would like to begin is just a few slides into the report on audit highlights. If I can ask the town clerk to move in a few pages. One more page, please. Wonderful. Oh, sorry. Great, thank you. For the fiscal 2025 year, would like to highlight that from a auditing standpoint, in terms of how we perform the audit, the rules that we abide by remained relatively unchanged from the prior year, as well as from an accounting standpoint, in terms of how the debits and the credits come together. It was a very quiet year on the regulatory front. So there were no significant changes in the underlying accounting standards for this year. Materiality, as a reminder, this is a threshold that we use to plan and perform the audit. The materiality is set at $16.5 million. That is a little higher than what that threshold was in the prior year. It is a function of the growth of the town of Oakville. So as the revenues and assets of the town of Oakville increase, so does the materiality level as well. In terms of the risks associated with our audit, I can confirm with you that all of the risks that we consider to be important and significant remain consistent with what we would have profiled and highlighted in the prior year. Flipping further back 2 slides, please. Just again, in terms of the materiality, if there is one number that I would like all members of council to remember, it's buried at the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. It is our misstatement posting threshold. So for the current year, any audit differences that we encounter as part of the audit process that exceed $800,000, we will be bringing those forward for discussion with council when we present the audit findings report in the month of May. So that would be the one number to remember. Flipping over one more slide, please. Again, nothing to note from a changes perspective. Moving forward, one more slide. I do like to remind council that your financial statements are consolidated. You have a lot of pieces that form the consolidated financial statements. All of the scoping is identical with 2024. All of these items that are listed involve full scope standalone audits, including OEC. So this remains unchanged from the prior year. Moving forward, another slide. From a risk assessment perspective, again, no significant changes on a year-over-year basis. And I will profile the next slide before I turn it over to Matt, if we can turn it over. So one of the areas that is key from an audit function perspective is on the topic of fraud and management override of controls. We do incorporate procedures as part of the audit process around the topic of fraud. We do testing of journal entries. We look at your management team's estimates to assess if there's any conservatism or any aggressiveness. We ensure that all of the entries that we do look at as part of the audit, have two sets of eyes. It is really important that you have a reviewer separate from the preparer. It's just a fundamental part of a effective control environment. So based on our procedures that we perform, again, we will report to all of you when we present the audit findings if we've encountered anything that is not above board. Flipping over one more slide, I will let Matt speak to the next few pages in the report.
Okay, thanks very much, Carlos. Appreciate that. The next few slides are going to go through our audit approach, areas of focus, and where we're going to spend our time. For those that are familiar with our audit plan from the prior year, again, echoing Carlos's comments, very consistent, and there are no areas in the next few slides that we would not have profiled in our prior year approach. So the three areas you see on the slide in front of you cover the town's primary revenue streams. So certainly we have procedures to validate the tax levy and related revenues. Very straightforward for us to audit based on the public knowledge and published rates. So we'll have procedures to go over that significant portion of revenue somewhat quickly, very straightforward for us. The next two areas take a little bit more time as they are more piecemeal in terms of dollars and cents flowing into the organization. We will continue to look at developer charges and user fees, applying substantive procedures. We will involve sampling as part of our audit approach in this area, and we'll make sure that all of the relevant revenue recognition criteria are met for amounts which are taken into income and recorded as revenue throughout the period. Similarly, on transfers and grants from other levels of government, we will look at material amounts, whether they are consistent year over year or new grants or sources of funding, and we will make sure that all of the criteria, both in the handbook and in the terms and conditions of the grant itself, are met before those amounts are taken into income. And if any amounts are to be deferred, we will consider that as well. Make sure it's recorded appropriately on your books. Moving to the next slide, please. Always, tangible capital assets will be a material area of focus in the town's audit, as is the case for any other public sector entity. So we will look at the rollover of your asset ledger from the end of the prior period to the beginning of this period. We'll look at material additions, work in progress items, which have continued to accumulate, and any material disposals to ensure that they are capitalized once appropriate, and that they are presented appropriately as construction in progress or work in progress if they are still under construction. You'll also see mention here of the term asset retirement obligation. Many of you will remember this was a heavy lift a couple of years prior when this accounting standard came into effect. In the years subsequent to its initial adoption, it is a much more straightforward exercise for management to look at that estimate, see if there are any new assets that have come into play which should be considered for retirement obligations, and if any changes to their methodology are needed. So we'll look at all of the inputs and judgments involved in management's calculation there on an annual basis, as we have done since that standard came into play. Again, post-employee benefit obligations, something that everybody should be used to seeing as part of our audit plan. That does represent, I should say, a material estimate on the financial statements. Management does involve a third-party actuary to assist them in computing that estimate. So we will look to make sure that all of the inputs used in the actuary's report are logical and appropriate, and that management's calculations are appropriately reflected in the financial statements, as well as the disclosures in the notes, which are required by public sector standards. Lastly, on page 13, just a few more areas of focus. Operating expenses, including salaries and benefits. Of course, every year we do have procedures that will sample test your expenditures and several analytical procedures, as well as tests of details to go over the payroll and benefit portion of operating expenditures. Again, deferred revenue and obligatory reserves, another familiar item, something in focus each and every year as part of our audit plan for any municipal entity. You do see the little needle in the middle is elevated rather than base. That is simply because of the quantum and the volume of activity flowing in and out of reserves. We do take a little bit of a deeper dive than some of the other areas. Again, not something that we think is particularly risky for the town of Oakville, just something that is consistent across the board for our approach of similar entities across the sector. And lastly, the investment in OEC, Oakville Enterprises Corporation. As required by accounting standards, we will look at the town's annual accounting entries to pick up its financial interest in the results of the OEC. With that, I will pass it back to Carlos and ask that we go ahead one more slide, just a couple of items for those on the call before we close our presentation.
Would like to just highlight that you as a council always have a direct line of communication with us as your auditors. If any of you do become aware of either suspected or alleged fraud that you would like to bring forward to the auditors, again, you have my contact information. We would kindly ask that if there are any issues pertaining the town of Oakville, that, you know, before we complete our audit next year, that you do advise us if you do have any concerns. And we've presented a few questions, you know, to spur some thought on the topic of fraud. Fraud does happen, you know, across the various organizations across Canada. You know, based on our insights, you know, when economies, you know, are not performing very well, and if we do, you know, go into a recession, we do see that in those cases, the incidence of fraud actually go up. So again, nothing that we would like to bring forward to your attention specific to the town. This is just the process that we'll go through in the new year with you. The other item that I would like to highlight, it is not for fiscal 2025, but I would simply like council to be aware that in a few years, your consolidated financial statements will be redesigned. So some of the financial statement captions that you are accustomed to seeing on your statement of financial position will be changed. What we will do is we will provide a sample of how your financial statements will look like in the future and share that with management, just so that we can begin the discussion about how it's going to look and feel different in a few years' time. So nothing specific to fiscal 2025, but it is something that is coming down the road in the next few years. The only other item I would like to raise is we do have various resources available to you. You are the entity charged with governance. So we do have audit committee and board institutes online that you can use for the benefit of your own guidance and thought leadership. So in a nutshell, we again expect a smooth year, very few changes from 2024 to 2025. So with that, I will pause and back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez. We have a question for you from Councillor Lischina. Councillor Lischina.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So my question is regarding procurement, and I guess I'm asking it from two specific directions: risk-focused and then control and compliance focused. So from a risk standpoint, obviously procurement is a key area of risk. So how does your audit plan address procurement practices, including contract management or vendor selection, if it's compliant with the town's procurement bylaw? And second, what is the approach to your internal control, like the internal control over procurement?
Through you, Your Worship, I would like to highlight two things. Number one, we do test your expenditures that the town incurs throughout the year. We do use sampling and other procedures to identify, how many to test. When we do look at expenditures, we ensure that there's sufficient evidence to support both the existence and the accuracy of the expenditures, ensuring that various forms of documentation support one another and ultimately support, the expenditure that is put through your general ledger. We are very keen to ensure that expenditures are also recorded in the correct accounting period. We do often see with tangible capital assets, for example, that in the world of construction, many of the invoices that ultimately may make its way to your procurement group or your AP group, sometimes happen months and months after the actual work was completed. So we also, worry about cutoff as well to make sure it's in the right period. The second thing is that we do a search for unrecorded liabilities after your year end. So we do take a sample of your procurement items that actually, in this case, would happen from January the 1st, 2026, all the way up to May of 2026. One may ask, why are you looking at that future period? The reason why we look at that future period is that we look for items that may have pertained to fiscal 2025. So we also take a look at that lens as well. And again, making sure that all of the different pieces of documentation, whether it be invoices, contracts, purchase orders, all support one another to, again, validate that expenditure. So those would be the two main things that we do from an audit perspective. The one thing that we do not look at is, obviously with procurement thresholds, we don't take a complete audit of all of the major contracts. That would be something that would be outside of a financial statement audit, likely more suited to sort of an internal audit type of function.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer.
Thank you, Councillor. In the absence of any other questions, who would like to move and second receipt of the information? Councillor Knoll and Councillor O'Meara, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that is adopted. And Councillor Shia and Councillor Giddings, I wonder if you would agree to be the mover and seconder for receipt of the Oakville Enterprises report. Thank you. Any objection? There being, Councillor Hazard-Deal? There being no objection, that's carried too. And Council, you have received notice of motion about road salt, and we'll take that up at our next meeting at the end of November. And that brings us to regional reports and question period regarding town boards and advisory committees. If anybody has anything. I'm not aware of any requests for reports, but they're in order now if you have any. In that case, a motion and a second to consider and read the bylaws is in order. Councillor Lischina and Councillor Dudek, thank you. Any objection? Mr. Clerk, there being none, oh, Councillor Nanda? No, just a misfire, okay. There having been no objection, the bylaws are considered read and passed. And that brings us to the end of our work for this meeting. It's been terrific working with you. I look forward to the next time. And you've got lots of time to get to the game. So, good night.
Go Jays.